Well, good morning, everyone. Almost afternoon now. I'm John Wuorinen, the Director of Admissions and Tuition Assistance here at Columbus Academy. We've got another year of Zooms at noon. We started this series during the pandemic when folks couldn't come in to campus, onto campus. And so we started asking different people around the school to talk to us about different topics. And this morning, as a continuation of that, and actually as a kickoff to the 22-23 admissions year, we have Melissa Soderberg, our head of school. Melissa is in her 10th year here at Academy, came to us from the Breck School up in Minneapolis. I'll let her chat just a little bit about her background and then we'll get started talking, taking a quick look at independent schools in general and Columbus Academy in particular. So Melissa, welcome.
So we're going to talk a little bit about what makes independent schools unique in their own way. And my experience in them is that I've been a child in them. I was a student. My father also ran independent schools, and other members of my family did. And I have been a parent in them, and I have taught in them, and now run one. So they are unique in lots of interesting ways. And we thought, John and I thought we'd talk a little bit about what makes them special and different, and why they might be something that people would like to choose to have their children be part of.
So just a little bit about you here in Columbus. Talk about your sons.
Sure.
Going
so I have two sons who are graduates of Columbus Academy, and one just graduated from college. One is a junior in college. They loved their experience here. They arrived in 6th and 8th grade, respectively. And my husband is an archaeologist, and he's an assistant professor at Denison University.
Terrific. So we did want to talk just a little bit about what independent schools are. Columbus, Ohio doesn't have very many independent schools, especially compared to some other regions of the country.
That's right.
Particularly on the coasts. So Melissa, independent schools, it's a broad category. There are lots of different types of schools. Can you talk a little bit about what is the same about those independent schools, even if they're different, but very importantly, what makes them different from the public schools that are around, and also the parochial schools?
Right. So often people use the term private school to kind of encapsulate every school that isn't a public school. And independent schools are a subset of private schools. Private schools are schools that don't get lots of federal funding, although some get some. And they aren't supported by the state fundamentally. And therefore, because they're not, they can choose to educate children in certain ways. So often parochial schools are private schools that have been designed by a church or a larger entity that's religious in some organizational way, and students are educated with some flavor or connection to a religion. In independent schools, most independent schools, some are religious, but they are not tied to any church. And Columbus Academy isn't religious in its orientation in any way. And its independence is that it's its own entity, and it gets to decide how to teach students and what we think is the best ways to go about doing that, what we think are the best ways. And we have a mission that drives our education. So independent schools are mission-driven organizations, and they have self-perpetuating boards of trustees like most nonprofits, and they organize themselves to provide an excellent education along the mission.
In a public district, the students are self-selecting in a sense. They go ahead, if they live in that district, they go to that school. But it seems independent schools choose who they teach.
Yep.
They teach the curriculum.
Yep. So independent schools are on the model of colleges and universities, and they so they provide a curriculum and a way of going about things, and philosophy, and people who think that that sounds like a good idea decide that they'd like to come apply to go to school here. So we organize ourselves not by where you live, but on whether or not you want this kind of education. And that makes it a really unique kind of education. It also means that we have kids from everywhere, and we really work hard to have a diverse population. It's one of the things we're very interested in. We have 46% students who are non-white. We also have students from how many different zip codes?
52 this year.
52 different zip codes, which really interests us. So we're really interested in having the kind of education that's rich in lots of different points of view, and everyone gathering at this place because they want to be taught in a very with a very specific philosophy. And our mission is to develop core values in students, to provide them a challenging education, but to also connect that the intellectual challenge to their hearts and their minds and the way that they develop as human beings. And so we reward their effort, very serious effort that they put into things. And consequently, it's a school where achievement is an important piece, but really being a good member of the community is among the most important values that we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a healthy mind, healthy body, and healthy spirit. So you mentioned that we get some funding, or independent schools can get some funding from the government.
Some do, we don't. The only money that we get is actually it's written into the legislation that our schools get a percentage of the educational funding from every student that attends our schools. So we also get busing from communities that will be busing kids. Not every community does.
Right.
But we don't take federal funding, and we don't take other state grants, and we don't take vouchers or things like that. Partly just because we're more interested in being able to be autonomous in our curriculum, and we don't want to be connected to state testing, because we like to design really unique and creative curriculum structures that are rooted in lots of academic basics, but we don't want to have to test kids all the time. We don't want to teach to a test.
So how does funding work then?
So we actually have tuition like college, and we charge for students to come to the school. We also offer financial aid or tuition assistance to any student for whom the amount that it costs to come to Columbus Academy is a hardship or difficult to pay, or multiple children in a family, so that it becomes a compounded issue. And we're proud of 25% of our students receive aid, and the average grant is half tuition, but we hope to expand that. And that's really in the plans for the future, to have more aid in tuition so that we can really afford any student who would like to come.
That's great. So thinking of students on the one hand, but then also faculty, talk to us how we hire faculty, how we hire staff, how they get to sign on board, and a little bit about that.
Right. So we actually, interesting, along the college model, we look for faculty and staff who love to work with students the age that they're seeking to work with. And of course, we're a school that has 3-year-olds through 18-year-olds. So it's quite a range, but they're experts in their field. And so in lower school, being an expert in your field may mean that you have particular certificates in reading, or that you really understand what elementary science is like. But for middle and high school, the requirements of a teaching license are not something that we expect. And we would be happy to have people who, we have a science teacher in middle school as a PhD in biology, and he's absolutely fantastic, but he does not have a teaching license. He's also British. And he comes to teach for us because he's got all of the qualities that we're looking for. So we are not necessarily requiring teachers to have a teaching license, because we don't necessarily think that education degrees are the pathway to excellent teaching. They can be, but we don't want to make it the only pathway. And actually having a number of teachers who are experts in their field really appeals to us the most.
Yeah, particularly in the upper school, right?
Particularly in the upper school. We have a number of PhDs. Well, we have them in both in the middle and upper school. And we actually help our faculty get advanced degrees. So we support and subsidize their master's degrees and PhDs
And speaking of which, our professional development program, talk a little bit about that.
So we have a really unusual professional development, and we have one of the top funded schools in really the Midwest. And what happens is our faculty have lots of different ways to access money for things that they would like to examine so that they can teach kind of creatively in the classroom. They have grants that they can apply for, and the grants run along the lines of doing group work with other teachers, doing something completely on their own. There's even a grant for just rest and rehabilitation, which is really important grant, and it's fun to hear how our faculty who receive that grant spend their summers, because the school funds for them to go on trips and to do interesting things. But we also have, we fund lots of conferences. And so really, if there are things that you want to do that you think will help you grow in what you teach, the school is incredibly supportive and financially underpins virtually anything that you would like to do. And within reason, we also have to be equitable with all our faculty, but there's
a special one that started, but probably 5 years ago.
Yeah,
The Dream Big Grant. Talk a little bit about that.
The Dream Big Grant is something that has up to $8,000 of spending money, and we have faculty who have applied to go to Australia and learn about flourishing with a very specific school that's there. And we fund for 2 faculty members to do that. And their dream is to explore this piece so that they can bring it back to their classroom. And so that's what we give them. It's actually competitive, so they have to apply for the money and they have to give a case of what they'd like to do and why they'd like to do it. But it's one of the real features of our professional development, and it's been a fantastic thing to see people take advantage of.
Again, going down to Australia to find out about different programs there. We've had one math teacher, 2 math teachers actually went to Scandinavia.
Yeah, that's right.
And attended a math conference there. So.
And they're able to travel after the conference, and they're able to just do the extent of the things that they would most like to do.
Yeah. It's been great. When people hear about Columbus Academy, I'm in the admissions office, and so we talk with lots of folks who know just a little bit about Columbus Academy. We're obviously trying to fill them in. One of the things that people hear is that we were founded in 1911, so we're over 100 years old, and they often make an assumption that Columbus Academy is a traditional school. How would you comment on that? I mean, what would you say about that?
I think in some ways we are a traditional school. We have bricks and columns on our campus, and it's a big wide open campus. It actually looks like a college campus with lots of different buildings, but in many ways we're not a traditional school, in that we aren't wedded to certain values only out of their history. We tend to examine new teaching philosophies, particularly around what we know about the brain and how the brain learns and how it retains information. We examine the way we grade things. We examine the way we do assessments. And so there are lots of kind of interesting ideas about developing the best teaching that we can do, that we're a part of. However, if traditional values include expecting the way students behave with each other and with the adults around them, if we expect them to dress more ready for school than kind of hoodies and sweatpants. Those are traditional things for us. And in the upper school, our faculty and students shake hands when they walk into the building and start their day. And so we do have some features like that. And I would say that's just good school, but it could be considered traditional in some ways.
Great. One of the interesting, I should mention, if anyone has questions for Melissa, all they have to do is put a question in the question and answer box. Talk a little bit about the structure of having 15 grades, just where they are on campus and all that. And then let's talk a little bit about what maybe some of the benefits are and
Sure. So one of the features of independent schools is to create a community that's very tight knit, because people aren't all living in the same neighborhood. The school becomes the focal point of a lot of activities and things that happen on the weekends. We have our youngest students on one end of campus and our older students on the other end of campus. Middle school is in the middle, which is appropriate. And we create lots of opportunities for students to do things together, to be buddies. They can be biology buddies, they can be senior kindergarten buddies, and they connect with each other over that open space and things. We'll have activities that they can be together. The reason that's so appealing to us is that we know that young minds gravitate to older students and see them as kind of the role models of what they would like to do. So often we'll have first graders who will watch someone who plays the trombone in the band and think, that's what I want to do. And I see that student doing that, and it appeals to me tremendously. So we want those things to happen. Also, I don't know about you, but some of my worst decision making was when I was only kind of accountable to my peers. And so we have students on campus who have older students who take care of them, or who are our older students are accountable to the younger students, and sometimes have to tone down their way of being a teenager because they have 6-year-olds around, and they do it, and they love to take care of the younger students too.
Right, they really step up.
They do.
So there's a question out there that is asking, did I understand correctly that students at CA are not required to take state tests?
That's true. We do not require them to take state tests. They just actually don't. It's not just that we're not required to, but they don't take state tests as part of our non-public charter status. And interestingly, we also have students who are operating at very high levels. So we do some internal testing, and we have students who take a battery of tests, sometimes in the fall, sometimes in the spring, and we measure internally how they're achieving in terms of whether they're developing in math and in reading and writing in the ways that we want them to, but we don't teach to any kind of state standard. We follow a number of state standards because they're good standards to follow. And then there are other things where we're kind of operating on a more accelerated timeline for our students.
Sure. Well, and as you get up into the high school, the students are very interested in the SAT and the ACT and AP tests.
Right. Yes, we have other testing that we do. The College Board AP test. We are a school that has a tremendously strong record in AP tests. Even though we don't actually teach AP classes, we teach honors classes, and then our faculty prepare students for the AP tests if they'd like to take them. And we have really very strong numbers in our students doing well on those. So they do a lot of college prep tests.
Right. The average senior graduates with 4 or just over 4 APs
AP tests, yeah.
Tests taken, and the average score is a 4.
Yeah, which is the second highest.
Yeah, it's so. So benefits. Oh, we have one more.
Yep.
We got another question that's coming in.
That was from Anika.
Oh, what do you think the competitive advantage for CA as a school is for students?
Right. So that's a great question, because I've been thinking about that recently from a parent point of view, because I have two children who, one who's in college and one who just graduated, and immediately they talk about how the school prepared them not only academically, it's kind of the table stakes that they were prepared academically, but they were prepared for a wider world of adults and advocating for themselves in ways that they could see that their counterparts who went to large public schools just weren't even close. So my sons immediately knew how to write 10-page papers. They knew how to go up and talk to professors after class and talk about the things that they wanted to get to know. They knew how to apply for grants and summer programs and internships immediately, but they also weren't they weren't surprised by the complexities of college and how to schedule their and organize their time, how to get what they wanted out of college, how to become members immediately of a community. And they often would watch their roommates or other people that they knew just couldn't quite figure it out. And so in many ways, what Columbus Academy does is it expects students in high school particularly to act in a much older way. They don't have study halls, they have free time, they have a complex amount of work, and they're accountable to their peers and to faculty members in a kind of natural relationship. And so as a result of that, they're really ready to operate in a more mature way when they get to college. And I know your boys experience that.
Yeah,
as well.
I have three sons who graduated from Academy. They're a little bit older, the classes of 2012, 13, and 16. They went to very different schools, to colleges, very different colleges, and whether it was a small college, very adept at navigating that. And then one went to Ohio State and ended up again really making sure that he was navigating correctly.
I was going to add, in terms of college admissions, which actually was something that I spent 10 years doing before I became an upper school head and a head. The way we prepare students for college admissions is as actually superior as it can get, right? So our students are known by faculty very well. Many faculty members can talk about, many teachers can talk about their intellectual abilities, the way they are in school outside of classes, because we're a small place and the faculty are intimately involved with the life of students. And we have an outstanding college counseling office. So the competitive advantage in terms of just getting into college is superior, because you have so much advice and connection going on, and a lot of strategy now is involved in the timing of applications and things like that. And our college counseling office is really excellent at that.
What I would add, however, again, we are very good at lots of these different areas, but in terms of if you're considering having your child go here, the college stuff is not the reason to come to Columbus Academy. I don't want to minimize it, but the reason to have children here is a deeper one than that. It's the preparation for college and the kind of good outcomes. They are a natural outcome of what's happening here at the school.
They are.
Wouldn't you say?
I do think, though, that parents choose Columbus Academy because they think it's going to provide their children a competitive advantage specifically for college. And what ends up happening is that they develop a love for the institution in the sense of all the things that it's given their children, because getting into college is just one of a number of ways that you need to grow up and kind of take command of your world. And so we use getting into college as one of those things. But the students who do Columbus Academy well, who are really involved in lots of different ways and who are fully connected to other students and to teachers, are the ones who become really successful in college and beyond.
Sure. One of the things it occurs to me as we're talking about the competitive advantage, one of the things that we had a marketing survey. This was several years ago, but what ended up happening is folks came and said to us, hey, we know that Columbus Academy is a strong academic institution. And that was what brought people into the school to take a look at us. When they came here, they actually loved the community. Can you talk a little bit about the community that's here? We just had some nice examples of that over the past weekend.
So at Columbus Academy, we do a lot of things with all our grades. So we had a Charlie David dinner, it's kind of an athletic fundraiser, but to be honest with you, it is more just a dinner of food trucks outside, a giant picnic for the whole school. And then we go to a football game at night, and the students play on the playgrounds nearby. And
the service board gets involved.
Yeah,
with
we have our oldest
boardwalk
kids take care of kids, the younger kids, and have lots of games for them to do. So, and our pep band played out on the green where we were all eating dinner. So, I mean, it really is quite an event. And we have a number of these things. We had an alumni weekend and a mud run during that. We
Camp
really want, we have the lower school camp out. We really want our students and families to see this place as part of their world that they belong to and can influence and be part of. So
That's
absolutely.
great.
We had a question, another question that my daughter is currently enrolled in an independent school. Part of their model is to allow failures. It created an open, fearless learning atmosphere. How does Columbus Academy view failure? And can you describe the learning culture, especially in the lower school? Absolutely. So yeah, we have a very, very open learning environment at Columbus Academy. One of the main features of it is an outdoor program, as John was talking about, particularly in the youngest years. And exploring is what we want students to do in lower school. We actually don't, we give lots of evaluations, but we don't give grades in the youngest years. And we work hard to develop that love of learning before students have to feel like they're kind of trying to wrestle with how they're performing on a certain standard. And over the course of middle school, we slowly develop the how you're performing according to a certain standard piece. This is a joyful place. This is a place where our faculty enjoy being goofy with their students. They love the students that they work with and the families that are involved in the school. And so it's an unusual place because our students achieve really wonderful things, particularly in high school, that you can see that are notable. Just today, we celebrated the girls' golf team that had only been in their 4th year of existence, and they won the state championship. So our students do amazing things, but it is not an atmosphere in which there's no room for lots of kind of playful, joyful mistake making and all sorts of things like that. And so it's a lovely atmosphere like that. And it actually comes from a long history of having our understanding of what good education is about, which is an atmosphere where students have curiosity and they get to explore and figure out what they're really interested in.
Yeah. My only addition, that Melissa's spot on. My only additional comment there would be to say that people get perhaps a bit confused by Columbus Academy sometimes if they're from away. They have some misperceptions. Misconceptions about it. And what I would say is they may know Columbus Academy as a school of achievement, which sounds pretentious, and I'm sorry about that. But they don't know the flavor the culture. One of the things as the director of admissions that I encourage you to do is come out and take a look at the school. If you walk around, you won't see students who are, beaten down by learning and memorizing. And there it is, as Melissa said, it's a joyful place that really allows students to come to life. So many different activities. It's 12:30. And so if there were one more question out there, we could answer it. If not, I'm gonna ask Melissa to just quickly comment. Are there any initiatives that you feel comfortable sharing that are I mean, what's on the horizon? If you don't have to say the big stuff, but
no. So, this school is really very, very strong, and we're doing a lot of things well, but we are interested in understanding a few things better about our students. One is how they flourish. And so we are embarking on a 2-year study with the Research Schools International and Harvard University's flourishing program to assess flourishing at our school and kind of understand what are the pockets where students feel really connected and they feel like they're growing well, and where are the places where they feel like maybe things are more of a struggle for them. And so we also are really interested in how the brain works and how it's going to inform what we do in our classrooms, and particularly in assessments, and get away from some kind of standardized test taking formulas that don't always serve everybody well. So we know that standardized tests are part of what students need to do, particularly when they're in high school, and our students do them well generally, but we don't need to have it be a primary feature of what we do in our classrooms. And it isn't a primary feature at the moment, but we want to figure out what the best ways to have assessment are. So that's
Great.
what we're doing.
Well, great. Well, thank you all for joining us. This is, again, the first Zoom at Noon. Next week, Lisa Spolter, Lauren Leahy, and I, the 3 directors of admission, are going to have a roundtable discussion a little bit about the procedures, processes, and ins and outs of the application process. So we would love to have you join us then. It's Mondays at noon.